Cruise control in a classic Mopar. Why would anyone give a crap about that? Well, if you do, I retrofitted cruise control out of an older Mopar into my 74 Plymouth Duster. So if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, stick around. Now all we really care about as gearheads is performance, right? Well, to a point, yeah. But this is what I'm thinking about putting on the car. I have a factory cruise control setup out of, I can't remember what. I used to know, but I bought it from a guy quite some time ago, and I don't remember what it's from, and I can't seem to find the messages between he and I when I purchased it. I bought it sight unseen from a fella who was retiring out of the Mopar parts business out of Georgia. But anyway, this looks like a sweet little system. Basically, all you have to do is hook up 12-volt power here, replace your switch, your brake switch with that, hook up these 3 wires to the servo, and just these connections that go to the signal light handle. This definitely is just, it'll just replace my factory handle in my stock column like nothing. Also, I guess I'm gonna have to stick this in the transmission and run that speedometer cable up. I currently run a GPS speedometer, so I don't even have a speedo cable ran, but this all came with it, and it should be no big deal to pop in there. And that'll be for the speed control only. I still won't have anything to do with my speedometer. So again, like I say, it's not a performance modification, but it will make long drives more comfortable. And I've always, ever since like the second vehicle that I ever had absolutely no options, no air conditioning, no nothing, but it had cruise control. And I've gotten used to that, and I really miss it. Realistically, this Duster is the only vehicle I have that doesn't have it. So this factory system, it's amazing. It's just like it could be an aftermarket system. You hook up power to it, and the rest of it's just plug and play. So I'm really thinking it's going to turn out good, and it should look really close to factory. The one thing I may have to do is modify the mounting bracket, because underhood on my car is pretty busy already. Right where this thing probably is going to want to live is more or less where the squirter jug is. And with the power brakes and all that crap in there, it might be a little bit interesting to route everything around and mount everything. But if I've got to customize, make a new bracket, whatever I got to do. I'm sorting out where the servo needs to go for the cruise control in my Duster, and just gonna lay everything out and see what's gonna happen. Do my best to make this as clean of an installation as possible. I've always just put stuff wherever it might fit, not really thinking ahead. So now I'm gonna have to move a few things, and just as I go, sort of try and tidy up everything under hood just to make things look a little less crummy than they do now. It's gonna have to go in this area just behind the battery and in front of the washer fluid tank. Now I got a couple of relays sitting there that actually fire my headlights, just to make my headlights a little bit brighter and whatnot, but it'd be no problem moving them. The only thing is I'm going to be kind of covering up a couple of little fuse holders that I've got directly below that too, so that kind of stinks. I think while I'm doing this, I'm going to end up just redoing and cleaning up all the wiring and stuff under the hood. So that is where that's going to go. I actually decided I'm going to have to move the washer fluid jug just a little wee bit to accommodate the speedometer cable. But that's okay. There's lots of room for it, and if it's not in 100% factory correct location, I don't think it's going to detract from the value of my car whatsoever. So that looks good. I think that's going to work out. The big thing I wanted to make sure that part was in there so that the cable, whereas it's just loosely routed around there, and you can see it laying on the carburetor there, that's approximately going to be the perfect length for the cable routing, and hopefully that's going to work out just about right. So there you can see where my speedometer cable is going to go, and I moved that squirter jug back towards the cab just a little bit. You can sort of see by the dirt mark how far back I moved it, so that should work out just about right. Now everything is coming together pretty good here. I'm a little bit curious as to the length of the factory wiring harness. I don't think it should be a big deal. I have a feeling that's going to be more or less where it would have been from factory anyway. So it's actually turning out real nice. Fairly happy with how this is going to go. Now, something that you'll notice is here I just capped off the one speedometer outlet. This actually in a factory job would go from here to the factory speedometer, but I use a GPS speedometer in my car, so that won't be used. That'll just end up being capped off, and I guess it's kind of slick having it there. If ever a person wanted to use say an electric speedometer, you could actually just thread your electric speedometer pickup right onto there, and you could use that too. But anyway, I'm going to be sticking with my GPS unit for now, and we should be good to go. All I have to do, run vacuum to here, 2 wires here, 1 wire down to here, and then back into the cab. But as you can see from the rat's nest of crap, we'll worry about some wiring cleanup and stuff like that in a little bit. So I run that right off that nipple there, and just down, around, and back up to here where the power brake hose goes. On factory installations, I see that second nub is actually for the cruise control, so that's where I ran it. And I used stuff that I had around. I actually, don't tell anybody, but I had to just put a coupling in that part. But realistically, it's vacuum, and it's plenty well sealed. I did end up using these little clamps. Now, this fit on there nice and snug, but it was just a straight pipe. There was no barb on it, there no anything. So I thought that might just help seal it a little bit. And then on this side, there was a barb, but the hose was just a hair on the loose side. So I just decided, what the hell, I'll put a couple of clamps on there, and it'll make me happy if nothing else. Well, let's see if this signal light switch handle for going from non-cruise control to cruise control is just as easy as I think it's going to be. Now, originally this was a column shift steering column, and I just peeled the indicator off so that I could go to just a floor shift collar or floor shift shifter, and I didn't want to have the look of it on there. It's just a stock steering wheel, but that's the boring old signal light handle, and I'm 100% sure that I'm going to be able to just replace that with the factory style cruise control signal light switch that I've got. Now, to peel this off, all there is there's just 3 nuts holding on the back, and you just grab a 3/8 socket, or what I used was a nut driver. And big thing, just don't lose those little springs, or you'll end up finding some piece of crap like that to put in there just to make it work. You also got that single 7/8 socket required for that center bolt that holds the steering wheel on. And then you need a puller just to pull the steering wheel off. And this here flat screw right here is what holds the signal light handle in. Just pull that out and the signal light handle pops right out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pop the individual connectors out of the plastic Molex plug, so that I can just make it easier to fish them into the steering column. You wouldn't have to do this if you decided you wanted to pull the steering column out and disassemble it completely. You could snake it in without taking it apart, but I have the tools to do it, so I'm going to save myself a bunch of time and just pop them out of there and fish them through. What I did make sure I did though is I took a photo of it, so I make sure I get the wires back in the right locations. So as I slid the signal light handle in right here, I angled the wires down and away, and they actually come out right out here. So that'll get me to here for now, and I'll show you how to cleanly tuck them away so they're right up underneath the dash where they need to be. So all we'll do now is we'll pop this piece off. We'll pop this piece that you can see here off. This is actually the little wire chase that hides all the wires coming out of the column, and we'll just run our cruise control wires down there, and they'll pop out right down here with all the rest of them. That little piece of wireway just pops right out of there, and you just pull your wires up inside there, snap it back on in place, and everything's hidden just like factory. It looks like it grew there. So there you go. Now that wiring is hanging there. I'll tuck it up inside with the rest of the wiring harness, and it will plug right into the factory cruise control wiring that I got with the parts that I bought. So here on the left is the cruise control switch. It's got the wires coming off of it for the cruise control, and it's got these to replace the factory brake light switching. So by the looks of things and holding them up against each other like this, I would say that 100% this one is just going to bolt in place of the factory piece, and it'll be 100% good to go. Now, I didn't record anything on trying to get that stupid brake light switch in there because I was kind of stuck up in there and my chubby self wasn't having a real good time. There would have been far too many swear words to edit out. So it did just bolt in just like the other one that I took out of there, and it worked perfectly. It's a pain in the butt to do. You got to make sure that there's a setting to make sure that it comes on and goes off when it needs to, but it 100% did bolt in just like factory in its application. So there, now I've got the control stick on the signal light switch. I've got the cancel switch on the brakes, and I've got the actuator installed under the hood. So what do I do next? This wire will go to keyed power. This plug-in will go to that one I ran through the steering column for the signal light switch. This will go to that pigtail that comes off of the brake switch. And these ones go right onto the actuator itself. So all I got to do is run that through the car and drill a hole for this here grommet, and we'll be good to go. This here is my cable for the hood release, and I was looking inside, and if I drill my hole for my cruise control wiring to come in just right beside it, if I drill a 1-inch hole with a unibit, it should be just about mint as far as being able to run that factory grommet right through there. That may or may not be where the factory would have done it, but you know what? I don't really give a crap because there wasn't even factory crews on these things anyway, so that's the way I'm going to do it. Now, something else that is painfully obvious is I've got to clean up the wiring in this car. It is a friggin' disaster, and there's speaker wire run for my line lock. Yeah, embarrassing as that sounds, that's the truth. And it's a complete disaster down here. So I'm just going to take this wiring and get it the hell out of the way so that I can drill my hole to run the first bit of wiring that might actually look respectable. So here we go. Let's just pop a hole in there. Doesn't matter what you're doing, even if you know you're going to be happier in the end. I still hate drilling holes in my car. So right there, directly below the ballast resistor, that's where my wires come through with that factory grommet. They just sneak along here and plug in right there. Of course, this is just extraneous crap. But that part of it just plug in just like the factory wiring harness. So that looks pretty dang good to me. So that's where the brake switch wires in. Just plugs in right there. And that's where the handle, basically the cruise control switch, plugs in just right there. And right here, the wire coming off there, that's just where I got to run power to it. So I'll find a place to run power. This is a real interesting electrical system in this car. It's all good and it's all safe, but it's certainly far from factory while still using the factory harness. So anyway, this is gonna be what I do for now, and I'm just gonna button this up and hide this all the way so you can't see it. So after hooking that last wire just up to keyed power, that's all I had to do the electrical installation. It was super simple. Like I say, plug and play, other than that one power connection. So that part of this installation was super simple. But I'm waiting right now. Actually, I had to end up ordering my speedometer cable that goes from the transmission up to the cruise control unit from Rock Auto. I wasn't able to source it easily locally, which I always try and buy local when I can, but sometimes you just can't. So now is what I think gonna probably be the most difficult part of the whole cruise control installation, is connecting the factory cable and linkage up to my 750 quick fuel carburetor. I've got a bunch of the factory parts, and I'm gonna do my best to use them with a mix of stuff I'm probably gonna have to fabricate myself and figure a way to get this thing sorted out. So this here piece is the link, the factory link that would connect the cruise control cable to the carburetor. Now, it actually bolted on. I didn't have to drill anything into my carburetor at all. What I did have to do, if you look over on this side, there was an arm like this, where this bolts through. It actually wrapped around to both sides, but I couldn't use that on this side because it would hit this deal. Sorry, this isn't looking for. It would hit this deal right here. So anyway, I cut the one arm off, and with the use of 632 screw and some aluminum washers and some spacers, I set this thing up such that it's nice, it's snug, and it's not going to really come off of there or anything like that. I gotta be super careful it's not gonna bind or screw around anything like that. But I mean, that part of it actually looks almost identical to the way it looks on the factory setup. So next thing I got to do is try and figure out a way to attach that cable to my my crazy ass throttle cable bracket there, but we got to be able to figure something out, I'm sure. So again, being a cheap ass, I'm gonna just build myself a little bracket out of this piece of actually it was part of a universal manual choke kit that I had, and I drilled that hole out from, that's the top size, just enough. It doesn't need to hold that much, so I'm sure that'll be enough meat to hold it. I'll just trim that ear off and it should work out just about right. So maybe being a cheap piece of shit is my superpower. I don't know. That looks okay. Hopefully it works. Well, it turned out better than I actually thought it was gonna. You know, this here's that piece that I was just showing you that I built. This is the factory link, and this is just the factory cable. Everything works perfectly good at wide open throttle, and it looks like there's lots of room. I had to kind of angle this down a little bit because I've got a drop down air cleaner, and I just needed to make sure that there was room for everything. So honestly, I think this is going to turn out really well. So it turned out, when I really had a good hard look at that that cruise control cable, it was going to bind, and it wasn't going to allow full throttle. And I was not happy with it. So I decided to just step away from using the factory pieces, and I used as many of the factory parts as I could, but I ended up, I think it's going to be a hell of a lot better. So this factory cruise control cable is just not going to work for me in its current iteration. So I got to modify it a little bit. If you look, this part, it only slides like a very small amount. Of course, I can't do this one-handed, but anyway, what I got to do is I got to figure a way to make that thing allow full throttle. I'm assuming, you know, maybe these were, who knows, maybe they were all on 2 barrels or whatever. Anyway, I need more available pull. Obviously I don't need the cruise to pull the carb wide open, but I need to be able to have the carburetor get to wide open without binding on this thing. So I had to figure out something. So what I ended up doing, I just cut the cable right close to this. This here is the piece that actually attaches to the servo. And I had to find a replacement cable, because one of the biggest things is I'm not going to be able to use that big piece of shit there, because that's what's holding me up as far as I can tell anyway. Either that or maybe just the length of the cable. I don't know what the deal is. So what I have here is, again, if anybody ever watches my channel, you'll see I do this quite a bit, but this is actually a bicycle brake cable. And I just chopped the one end off and I slid it in here, and that's exactly how the factory cable goes in there. Now I'm just going to feed this through the plastic housing, and let's see what we can do to hook the other end up to the carburetor. So now we've got miles of extra cable. I'll just cut that to length, but this little piece, I just pressed that onto the end of the original stock cable, and that's just another piece out of the bicycle kit that I got the cable out of. This is the exact same diameter cable as the stock stuff, so I have no reason to believe that this isn't going to work out just mint. So hopefully finally this will make sense. Now I've just attached, this is the factory cable here. Lost my nice little aluminum end, but whatever. I'll never find it again anyway. Now this is actually a throttle cable end from an aftermarket throttle cable that I bought, and I never throw nothing away. So I just use that to hook it up for now. Now what I will eventually do is I'll get something like this, I'm sure, or maybe even something like this to attach it. Just to make it quick and easy when I want to pop the carburetor off. This is no big deal. I'm just basically ensuring that it's going to work now. Now, in order to hold the cable to this, you can see right here on the cable end, try and get some light on that. Those are just crimp connectors for 16, 18 gauge wire. Now, it's just a regular electrical crimp, and they hold on there like a Joe damn. I've done this quite a few different times before, and they don't slip. I mean, this isn't going to have very much pulling force on it anyway, but that's what I did. That's that bicycle cable, and that's how I hooked up that end. Now, I guess next thing we got to do is make sure the air cleaner fits, which I'm pretty damn sure it's gonna. Everything's below that big loop here, so yeah, we're looking pretty good. I think this might finally, actually, after months and months, we'll get to drive with some cruise control. So here's my speedometer cable. The bottom inlet is the inside on the speedo deal, and the top obviously is the outlet to the speedometer that I'm not using. Now it just routes down along there and goes down. Worked out really well. Fortunately, that's just a GM speedometer cable, and you can get them in a bazillion different lengths and whatnot. They'll fit actually GM, AMC, Mopar, a whole bunch of different crap. But I'll share some information as to the part number and how I come up with that and the length and whatnot in the notes of the video, I guess. And the cable from the actuator comes around, and I just made that little bracket off the master cylinder, and you can see it sneaks in and around there and down to the carburetor. Turned out really good. It's nice and clean, and it's not exactly like the factory had the cable attached there, but I think it's going to work out just right. I'm going to try and find something other than tie wraps to hold that in there permanently. Just, I don't know, because I'm gonna. So now all that's left is to take it out and test it. Now bear in mind, I have no idea if any of these parts are bad. They were all sold to me with the assumption that they were good, but I sat on them for a couple of years and there's really no way to go back on the guy that sold them to me. So we'll give her a whirl, see if it works, and if it doesn't, then we'll just troubleshoot it and figure it out. I have 100% confidence that the installation is all correct, because like I showed you, it's dead nuts simple. I mean, even I couldn't screw that up. Well, test drive didn't go as planned. I'm pretty damn sure the servo is junk. I looked around, I checked, it got power everywhere that needs to have power. I'm afraid that old crummy servo is junk, but I think I got a way to make something else work. Now this here is the old style. It's a metal bolt together, and these started in 1968. I'm not 100% sure when these all metal ones stopped, but I've heard 85, but I don't think that's true. I think it was prior to that. But anyway, these things worked great until the diaphragm went to hell, and the OEM said that they were a non-serviceable item. They said just ditch them when they no longer work and replace them, but that's not an option anymore. So chances of finding one of these things in working order, I mean, I've seen NOS ones go for bulk money, and I wasn't super interested in that. So I'll show you what I did. I found that this servo out of an 88 Dakota, which is this one right here, it's identified it's mostly plastic with just metal on the front. And the wiring appears identical, other than the fact that this one's got an external grounding this this can here. But I'll show you what else is required to put this one in place of that old all steel tin one. Now from this view, they both look extremely similar, the plastic one and the old school metal one, but you see right here where the vacuum nipple is, same place in both of them, where the incoming and outgoing speedometer cables are, virtually the same on both of them. Even the overall shape and whatnot, this one's got a bigger vacuum pot, but other than that, they're super close to the same. Now if you look, one wire goes on here, and two wires go down here. Same as this one. The two wires go down there, and the one wire goes down there. The only difference on this plastic one, it's got an external ground, which we'll make sure that we ground that to a good solid chassis ground. But as far as wiring goes, they hook up identical from one to the other, so that's dead nuts simple. There's nothing that you really need to worry about there. And as far as the cable goes, it's same damn thing. There's just a pin goes through there and hooks to this little knob right there. The only thing that I did have to do, these two holes, that go through, these two studs go through. I had to upsize these to 1/4 inch to fit on the newer plastic servo, but it was really no big deal, and there's still tons and tons of meat there. And that this is just plastic, but there's still tons and tons of meat there to hold that and be plenty strong. So that's attached. Now the only thing that I need to do is the bracket for this original one. It just bolted on to this metal right here. So I'm going to have to modify that, and I'm probably going to have to mount it off of these, I'm thinking. But that shouldn't be that big of a deal, because if I wasn't so dumb, I would have just hung on to the bracket that came with this one. But I recycled that like a freaking meathead. So now I got to figure something out. Build something that doesn't look like it come out of some hillbilly piece of crap or something like that. But we'll sort that out. So I just built this, and that should do the deal to make that original bracket work. Let me just show you how it fits onto the vacuum pot there. So that right there is going to be my new mount. Now, it'll attach to these, but the factory bracket for this plastic style actually attached to these as well. So I'm entirely confident that there'll be no problem with that as far as breaking or anything like that. And I just snuck in and checked, and this still bolts up just like these ones did. So the only thing is this thing will be set back just a little wee bit, which in my case, the way I have everything set up, if anything, that'll benefit me. And this speedo cable will have more of a straight shot into the unit. So all in all, that is going to be pretty much the clear cat's ass for mounting that servo where the old one was. And that right there on the right is the one that was coming out, and on the left is the one that's known to work that's going in. This, like I say, this should really work for anywhere that one of these old school 68 and on servos is giving you trouble, which apparently most do from the research that I've done online. I researched the hell out of fixing this thing and whatnot. Apparently there's really no available parts for them. So that's what led me to this. Now, the key is when you're looking for the newer style, there are some that have the plastic body, but if the cruise control is run through the computer, like on I had an 89 Dodge pickup with the TBI fuel injection, and it was run through the computer. So basically you want to make sure it's a carbureted vehicle, and realistically these should work. And I honestly, I kind of think maybe 88, where this one came from, is probably gonna be the last year. But I mean, you could look at Diplomats, you could look at probably any Dodge truck that had cruise control, and you should be able to find a viable servo. And the thing is, if this one's a 68 and this one's an 88, this has got 20 years less of heat cycles and abuse and mud and blood and beer going through it. So the chances of finding one of these in operable condition is a whole hell of a lot better than the chance of finding one of these. So after all that piddling around and learning and figuring and wiring and whatnot, I'm ready to take this thing for a test drive. So come along, let's see what happens. Okay, here we're at about 65 miles an hour. Let's see if we can get this thing to pick up. I got cruise control. Well, after that test drive, we got some good stuff happening. We got it sets. Now it drops a mile an hour or two after you set it. I kind of remember my old 82 Dodge pickup and the 84 that I had, which were probably the last two vehicles that I had with this type of cruise control. I think they did the same damn thing. So I'm not too concerned about that. It sets, it cancels both with the stock and with the brake switch. So that's all working. And it when you hit resume from 25 miles an hour, it shits and gets right up to speed for you. So overall, I'm really happy with the way things turned out. The one thing I have to say, and I'm not sure if this is the way it's supposed to be or not, I'll have to do a little bit of researching into that, but I was expecting when you're going on riding along on cruise control and you hit the resume button, I was expecting it to increase your speed a little bit. This one does not. Not a big deal, really. Not a big deal at all. But it's just something I'm used to from more modern vehicles. If that is the way it's supposed to work, I'll figure out a way to make it work. If it's not the way it's supposed to work, I don't really think I'm going to be able to find myself a way to give a crap. So overall, 100% super happy with it. I just took it for a cruise 10 miles into the city and 10 miles back, riding the cruise, testing it out, trying a few different things, and yeah, can't be happier with it. Turned out just the way I'd hoped. This video actually, well, it's a kind of a compilation of a few different videos that I've already posted, plus some new stuff that I've just taken. But I wanted to do kind of a complete entire video of the whole installation, which actually took me probably just over a year, start to finish, to get all this crap done, just because, I mean, it wasn't really a priority. And anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Hope you got something out of that. If you have any questions that you think I might be able to answer about these old cruise control setups, throw me a message in the comments. If I can help you out, I certainly will. Thanks for watching.